Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Lee Kaplan's a regular contributor on The Price of Business. He is with the law firm of Smizer, Kaplan, and Veselka. Their website is skv.com, and they're a very, very influential, outstanding law firm. We're delighted to have Lee as a regular on the show. Before we get into our topic, real quickly, a little more information about what SKV is all about.
Our firm handles commercial lawsuits, mainly civil lawsuits, some white-collar criminal matters. For example, one of my partners successfully defended the last Deepwater Horizon defendant in New Orleans and won a jury trial. But the normal work of most of our lawyers is business-type lawsuits, disputes involving just contracts, fraud, sort of the normal things, people who claim that they are entitled to a brokerage fee or a finder's fee, people who say that a written contract was amended in some fashion and they don't have to supply 300 tons of a particular product, but it's only 150 tons, or alternatively a customer who only wanted 150 tons, although the contract seems to say 300 tons. Just all kinds of business disputes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's very important to read if you're going to go into business.
Well,
that's
right.
amazing.
And of course, my law firm runs a business, and fortunately, we've managed to stay out of the courthouse, except, we as advocates.
Yes. Very good, very good. Yeah, well, you guys are awesome at what you do, and I love getting your opinion. I also like talking to you a little bit about the political front, and you and I always have lots to talk about in that arena, this election being one of the most bizarre. Arguably, I would say, I say that almost every election cycle, but this is head and shoulders among elections I've seen in my entire lifetime in terms of bizarre. I've never seen anything like it. The Trump phenomenon is, if you talk to a Trump fan, they use it in the shock and awe sense. I use it in the three-ring circus sense. You've got Ivanka Trump, his daughter, being the face on how to vote when she herself isn't even registered to vote, nor her brother Eric. To me, the whole thing reeks of opportunism rather than civil interest in civic affairs, if you know what I mean.
Well, I'm no fan of Donald Trump, so perhaps that's a bias. In my opinion, I think it's a well-informed bias. And my personal view is don't start complaining about the rules only after you start losing. If you don't like the rules, work on them in the interim and do something about them. And as for his children not voting, I think it's disgraceful that educated people are not registered to vote.
Yes, I agree with that.
My son moved from Houston to North Carolina to work. He registered to vote when he moved from North Carolina to New York. I reminded him, and he said, "Hey, I've already done it." If you want to complain at all about government or politics, and you're not registered to vote, then you need to stuff your mouth with a sock.
Well, and again, I think it's particularly bad in the case of Ivanka when she's made herself the face of voting. She's produced these videos for the Trump campaign on how to vote, which says something about who he's trying to reach. You remember when he announced, what was it, in Nevada? And I love the poorly educated voter. I think he was talking to his core constituency.
Well, there are things that, this is a guy without a governor on his tongue, and many of his surrogates have a similar problem. Now, he's not alone in that, but, it's just too late to complain about the rules. Different states have different arrangements. If you want Colorado to have different rules, then get involved in that early, or find people who support you to get involved in it early. Don't try to change the rules after you've been outmaneuvered. So I just think he's a big whiner and a crybaby.
Really is.
As
For a
I
guy
say,
who
I'm
tries
not a supporter of his. So my biases, which I think are well informed, ought to be evident.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that you and I don't agree on a whole lot when it comes to macro politics, but we both strongly agree on the Trump arena. And to me, as much as anything is temperament and competence. Forget about policy. Then this guy brings neither the temperament or the competence to be able to do what he's going to try to do. This isn't an on-the-job training environment. It's amazing to me.
Well, what I have said in the past is anybody who did business with him along the way deserved to get burned if they got burned, and many people did. And I certainly am not going to entrust my country to him.
No way. Talk to me a little bit about one of these issues that you've been beating the drum extremely loudly on because it needs to be beaten, which is that of cybersecurity. Kind of give us an update on what you're seeing out there and a little bit of background as well.
Well, I continually read about class actions being filed against large companies, say, the targets of the world over cybersecurity breaches. But, and I've also been hearing about ransomware where people will hack into a system and essentially they'll turn their data into useless information unless the company pays ransom, often in Bitcoin or some hard-to-trace method. But I think that's going to come to smaller businesses in one of two ways. Either you're going to have customers at some fairly local business that nonetheless has $1 million to $50 million in revenue. They'll get hacked and their customers will have their information go out, and the customers will start suing them. Some enterprising plaintiff's lawyer in town will sue them. Or a small business will be the entryway for a larger business to be hacked, and then, i.e., one of the smaller business's customers, and then that large business, which has more resources, will make demands on the small business for compensation, and that could be ruinous. So I would say, and of course, this doesn't involve my law firm making money. If anything, it forestalls additional lawsuits. Everyone who has any business that's even in the $1 million range has got to get IT people who are up to date on all the latest viruses, attacks, hacks, and make sure they've done everything they can to make their system secure.
Yeah, and reality is that it doesn't seem like no matter what our side, those who are trying to protect security do, man, they are constantly innovating. The hackers are constantly innovating.
Right. The bad guys are infernally ingenious, and the bad guys are all over the world. I'm sure that many people think, why would somebody in China or Russia be interested in me? Well, money is money. And if somebody's in Russia or China or Croatia or Taiwan or Singapore and they're crooked, they're going to look fairly far afield for victims because it's harder for those victims to come after them and get law enforcement to help. So I think anyone with a meaningful business is vulnerable and at risk to overseas criminality. Once that happens, the internet is worldwide. Your life as a business person will be a living hell.
Yes, exactly right. And a side factor to that is the fact that the dollar still maintains the greatest stability of any currency worldwide. And so, $1 is worth more than several other currencies, not only today, but in constant value. And so that also makes even a small business guy in Upchuck, Idaho's, business interesting to the guy in Russia.
Yeah, the scams are all over, and of course, if they can get into our systems, then that's right. They're being paid in U.S. dollars, which of course are prized around the world. So I would just say people need to spend that money on an IT expert to make sure that they have done everything they can for the time being to make their systems foolproof. And you can't do it once and then say, well, it's done. That's the last I need to worry about it. It's an ongoing arms race between the protectors and the offenders.
Yeah. Do you see a growth or a potential growth in insurance-type policies that cover this type of thing? Is that going to be another growth industry, or is it too risky for them to even go into that space?
Well, there are those kind of policies, and I think the cost is only going to go up because it's very hard to underwrite those policies. How does an insurance company figure out what the risks are and how much it's going to cost? That's
right.
So difficult to predict. And as a result, I think it costs a lot of money. So I don't make any recommendation about that. People have to talk to their insurance agents and companies and see what the coverage is. But I would expect it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, insurance, for people, I don't think they quite get it, but insurance is a euphemism for risk management. And if you can't manage the risk, then you can't cover it. You really can't. And so it's really that simple. And so when you try to cover stuff that has no variable of measurement of frequency and those type of things, it's virtually impossible to cover without spending a lot of money covering it.
Oh, that's right. So, start the risk management by preventive hiring of outside experts who are on the hook to be up to date on the latest techniques for exploiting vulnerabilities so that they can help you try to minimize the vulnerabilities.
Talking to Lee Kaplan with Smizer, Kaplan, and Veselka, and he's a regular on the show and a very popular one indeed. Lee, you were talking, with only a few minutes left, you were talking about an interesting story about, when it comes to, something that we've been talking about here, which is a high-rise that's captured the anger, if you will, of its neighbors, and that continues to be an ongoing battle. Let's wrap it up with that conversation.
Well, the Ashby high-rise case has not been finally decided. It's on appeal. But it came to mind again over this recent controversy because what the Ashby high-rise is about is basically people using the nuisance concept, the common law concept of nuisance and nuisance laws to try to prevent a development that is otherwise legal on another piece of property. Well, what we have now that's just come to the forefront in the last few days or weeks is this White Oak Music Hall that's essentially in the shadow of downtown. It's very close to downtown, and as I understand it, the promoters have created a venue for loud music, and by claiming that these are special events or temporary events, have managed to get a permit so far, but many people think that what they're doing is evading the laws. And I wouldn't be surprised if either the city takes some kind of enforcement efforts against this music hall or the residents file a lawsuit. It's I think it's called the North Side area, but it's the White Oak Music Hall, and it's just outside of downtown. And it's only a matter of time before this ends up being in litigation. That's my prediction.
And who do you think the law is going to favor, the way laws are established now?
Well, I have a feeling that the local residents are going to prevail on this one ultimately because there's a whiff, and I don't know this for sure, and most of my information comes from news sources, other news sources. I'm not involved in this matter at all. But there's a little bit of a whiff that people are being very clever about how they get permits and what they're claiming their purposes are, whereas a permanent venue might need more permits or more approvals from the city than they currently have. So that leads me to suspect that there's some appeal to a claim that might be made against the owners of this location, whether by the city or by private citizens.
Mm-hmm. Lee Kaplan is certainly one of my favorites here on the Price of Business show. He's a regular. Smizer, Kaplan, and Veselka is his law firm. skv.com. As always, brilliant. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
You bet. When we come back, we're going to have much more for you on tomorrow's program. Do want to remind you the show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com. While there, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter.